Chairman, Deputy Chairman, honorable members, my name is Dr. Armstrong Takai. I'm the CEO of MOFI. First of all, let me apologize profusely for coming late. We had another meeting in the power sector which incidentally has to do with the work you've asked us to do, which is on our assets. One of the main points of discussion during that meeting was ensuring that we have visibility over all the power assets. So that's one of the reasons why I was late. So I said, let me apologize for that.
No, let him
Thank you.
apologize. Thank you. You can administer the oath on him quickly. So,
Dr. Armstrong Takan of MOFI. Do solemnly affirm that the evidence I shall give at this investigative hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
you may want to continue from where your colleagues have stopped by telling us, giving us an update on the activities of the agency.
Thank you very much, Chairman and distinguished honorable members. The assignment you've given us, we've made significant progress on it. So we've approached it in different ways. So the first is around the different asset classes. The first category of asset class that we've taken is the corporate assets. These are entities that have already been incorporated, and they regularly publish their financial statements, which are audited. So what we've also done is that in order to ensure that we have visibility and also transparency in terms of what's going on with each of those businesses, we've worked with each of those entities to collect their financial statements. At the moment, we've started work on looking at the financial statements for 2021, 2022, and 2023. And the next thing is that a lot of those numbers have already been tallied, and then we're going to get one of the big four firms to give us an opinion on those financial statements. That will have a consolidated financial statement on the corporate assets. That work is ongoing at the moment. The plan is to be able to publish that for the entities that have audited financial statements. That way, we can publicly know the holdings we have in each of these corporate assets that have also been audited and signed off on by reputable firms. That's on the corporate assets. In terms of the non-corporate assets, which are the assets related to the different sectors, we engaged Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the foreign-based assets. And we've spoken to them, so they've set up a team for us to work with them to identify each of those foreign-based assets, first of all, to know where they are located, and then begin to look at how to assign, to get valuation on each of those assets. But the other thing they also said, honorable members, that I think is also important for us is that what they said to us is that for some of the assets, what they've realized is that there are some of them that they really may not need for the diplomatic services that they could use for joint ventures. That way, the revenues from there can be used to build properties in areas where they are renting, which they call the rationalization aspect of it. And then, of course, there will be options for concessioning of those as well as ways of optimizing the assets, because there are some that are really not being used and are not generating any revenues. That work is ongoing as well. We've also engaged the Ministry of Housing because of the size of the properties that the Ministry of Housing has for federal government. We started that work as well with them. And the idea is to be able to create a land bank where not only do we know where those properties are, but also the recertification of it. Because for many of the federal government-owned properties, if you ask for the certificate of ownership, a lot of the times you can't find it because of the lack of available records. So that work, we're working with the ministry, but the ministry has also started some work with the World Bank, which is the recertification of federal government landed properties, both built and unbuilt. And the idea is to be able to provide that visibility over there. And first of all, let me commend the committee for some of the work you've been doing with respect to the some of the lands that you've been able to identify and also stop activities that really and truly should not have started without the right approval for that. I think that's also helping us as well in terms of elevating the awareness about the need for us to ensure that not only do we have a database of those assets, but there is a process for either concessioning them or to sell them or to go into joint ventures. Otherwise, there will be too much chaos in that space. And I think you've helped us elevate a lot of that conversation. And you're doing a lot of things that we cannot do on our own. And we want to thank you as far as the landed properties are concerned. On the power assets, which is also another large area where we have a lot of investments across the value chain, from the disco side, the generation side, the gas companies as well. That's actually one of the reasons why I came late. There's an interministerial committee working group that has been set up to look at the cross-cutting issues across the various sectors, which we're working with them to identify interagency collaboration, to identify each of those various assets. Some of them already have the assets enumerated, but not valued in terms of their current valuation. We're working with them to see how we can work together as a group, including the regulators, to have a database of each of those assets and go through a process of valuing them so that we can be able to accountable not only to this committee, but to Nigerians as a whole. And then, of course, there are concession assets as well, working with ICRC, because in each concession, there's an underlying asset, and they vary from one sector to the other. You have port concessions, you also have landed properties and other businesses that have been concessioned as well. But we need to ensure that not only do we have a repository of the assets that form the basis for the concession, but also to have the value for each of those assets, again, as part of the assignment that you've given us.
Thank you. Before members, I'm going to allow you now to ask your questions, but please just give me the privilege of asking this first question. I mean, it's on my mind. I mean, before the MD came. Dr. Takang, you recall that in March, the committee wrote a letter to your agency on the sales of federal government assets to fund the budget. And as custodian of this asset, 350 billion was projected from the sale of this asset in 2018-2019. And another 270 billion was projected when the president was presenting the 2020 budget as part of the funding for the 10.5 trillion naira budget for that year. My question, what is the status of the highlighted assets that were earmarked for sale? 2, what due diligence did MOFI take so far on these assets? Bearing in mind your response to the committee in April, when we last met, you alluded to the fact that you don't have the details of those transactions, so you cannot furnish us with information that we requested for at that time. However, in May, your agency and BP had come to an understanding to work together, and both parties agreed on a framework for cooperation. So, as a custodian of these assets, what is the status of the sales of these assets? Afam Power PLC, Geregu, Yola Electric Distribution Company, Omotosho IPP, Calabar IPP, all the river basin authority that you listed at that time. The committee would like to know what is the status report on these transactions. You can note that while you take some other questions from members.
Presidentially, I was the mover of that motion that asked MOFI to work with Nigeria Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers to enumerate the assets of Nigeria. And I had met with the president of the Estate Valuers Association recently, and he said they have not been contacted regarding the valuation of these properties. And but they have, however, gotten note of the submission from you guys that you are already getting it done. So, however, he had sent his members to send their profiles to you. So this is my question. Have you started work on these assets being enumerated and listed in the platform? Because your director said you've already started. And here, before you came, he said you're having problems getting these properties from MDAs. So another question after this, have you started? The MDAs that are refusing to send you the list, are you telling me that MOFI do not have the power to get this list without walking into these MDAs or these agencies? I think that you as a body should be able to get this list without even contacting these MDAs and evaluating and enumerating this list. And for your director to say that you've already started this platform, I would like to know how many MDAs and agencies do you guys already have evaluated? And what is the work relationship between you and the NIESV, Estate Surveyor and Valuers? Are you people in good rapport in this, or you are working alone as valuers yourself? Because I think you guys are not licensed to value properties in Nigeria. And my last question, sorry, Chairman. Have you received funding from the federal government? MD, are you with me? Yes. Yeah, have you received funding from the federal government regarding this program? And if you have, I would like to know how much have you expended from this project? Because me, I'm a rep member. I'd like to follow up on motions that I move. For it was passed in the House and it was carried. And I think you guys have to give us a very detailed report on how far you've gone, because I've not gotten any report from them, Chairman, so far.